Here on The Balanced Voice, we work hard to bring you conversations that offer real and tangible solutions to the issues that are scariest and most pressing in all of our lives. Today, we welcome back Samuel Chapman, who has previously been on the podcast to discuss the tragedy of losing his son Sammy to unintentional fentanyl overdose. Along with him, he brings another mother, Amy Neville, who also lost her son Alexander in a very similar situation, and Matt Bergman, who's the founding attorney of the Social Media Victims Law Center, and they're all here to discuss a pending lawsuit against Snapchat.
After seeing me, your knee-jerk reaction is to want to go home and take Snapchat off your kid's phone, but instead of doing that, why don't you ask them, what have you seen about drugs on Snapchat? And how your kid answers that question is going to tell you everything you need to know. And then a lot of times, I'll hear from parents, you know what, my kid didn't know anything about drugs on Snapchat, but I just found out they're being intensely bullied. Or some old man across the country is sending them inappropriate pictures at 13 years old. And so it opens up the door for those conversations.
In today's conversation with this powerful group of people, Renya and Jen catch up with Sam and Amy about the work they've been doing to raise awareness about the dangers of social media and learn from Matt about the pending lawsuit. This is the Balanced Voice podcast.
We've been talking at Crime Stoppers about the impact of fentanyl-laced pills for quite some time, and the loss of Sammy really pushed this conversation into the headlines, into the national media, and even watching that unravel, talking about drug overdose was hard because we know this isn't about drug overdose; it's about the systematic killing of children, the poisoning of children, and watching how the role that the social media platforms allegedly have in this is very important. So we now learn 65 families are going to be suing Snapchat individually. It's not a class action lawsuit. Matt, you're the attorneys leading the way. Talk to us about what's happening and what you're hoping to get done with this lawsuit.
Well, we are in the midst of an epidemic of fentanyl deaths among our young people. It is the largest killer of children. Under 18 is fentanyl contamination. And in virtually every case, it involves not a child that seeks fentanyl per se, but a child who ingests prescription drugs that, unbeknownst to him or her, are laced with fentanyl. And this is neither an accident or a coincidence, but a direct product of the way Snapchat has designed its platform to facilitate the sale of illegal drugs. This is specific in the design and specific to Snapchat. It provides disappearing messages, geolocating, and for my eyes only features, which are a magnet for drug dealers. They can advertise their deadly wares online in menus. They can literally deliver like DoorDash to people's homes. And do so with the knowledge that all of the evidence of their malign activity will be automatically deleted once the person reads it. This is a open door for a drug market, and that's what Snapchat is facilitating. It is no different than if Snapchat had a video arcade with a room in the back where everyone knew that drugs were being exchanged. They would be responsible for knowingly facilitating the sale of illegal drugs on their physical premises. Our lawsuit contends that they should have the same responsibility for their virtual premises.
And what's interesting about the suit is I noticed you guys were very specific about saying this is about non-speech behavior and activity. It sounds like you did that strategically.
Well, we did that because, we thought about what is it that makes this product so dangerous? And it is the design of the product. And let's be very clear. I always want to say we don't condone the sales of prescription drugs online without a prescription. We know that these children may have made bad decisions. That's what teenagers do, but they don't deserve to die for it. And that's what's happening at epidemic levels among our young people. Of the cases that we have, and we now have over 85, not all of them are filed yet, in all but one case, the young person acquired their fentanyl-contaminated drugs through Snapchat. There are a lot of problems with social media, and my law firm has dedicated itself to trying to change those. But the fentanyl issue is not a social media problem. It is a Snapchat problem. And unless and until Snapchat changes its design to be less attractive to drug dealers, I fear that we're going to continue to have this epidemic of deaths among our young people.
So,
And this
I have
has
a
to
quick
stop.
question. So is it just Snapchat that this lawsuit states?
Yes.
Yes. And, so I was involved in, I don't know, FOSTA SESTA, I'm sure you've heard, where we were changing Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And we weren't able to get to a point where we got it changed where it said where the web platform was knowingly facilitating the trafficking of children was what it was about. But we couldn't get the unknowingly facilitating, which we know in unknowingly facilitation, you can use technology to find the unknowingly where it's not so visible to the naked eye, but you can run algorithms to find that stuff, right? So my question to you is, what law, I know this lawsuit and I do want to get in lawsuit, but what laws do you think need to change to make sure that knowingly or unknowingly we can hold these technology companies accountable?
Well, and I applaud what you've done with FOSTA SESTA. I don't know if you saw that Senator Graham has introduced the EARN Act. That is, we're a little off topic, but you've raised, that would exempt CSAM, which is child sexual abuse material from Section 230. And we're very gratified, both with respect to the fentanyl issue in specific and the social media issue in general, that this is an issue that has bipartisan support. We have liberal Democrats and conservative Republicans coming together to protect kids, both with respect to obscene materials online, but also Chair Kathy McMorris Rogers held a hearing or a roundtable that Ms. Neville spoke on this fentanyl issue. And again, this is one of the few and I think hopeful signs of bipartisan consensus.
Well, we're, very thankful for what you're doing and obviously joining you. We have Sam and Amy, and we're thankful for you all to be willing to share your story, the loss of your sons, respectively. Amy, Alexander passed in June 2020. Sam, we know Sammy passed February 2021. These are, recent losses, tragic losses. What has this journey like? What has this been like for you all from the point of knowing that your sons were able to communicate so easily with a pill pusher, drug dealer, good boys, the heartbeats of your family, to losing your children and then the fight thereafter?
Since Alexander's death, it's been a crusade because we didn't know about fentanyl at the time. We thought we were prepared for his experimental phase, and we were prepared with the information that was out there. And, as we started to explore what was really happening, Snapchat kept coming up over and over and over again. And we knew that he had purchased these pills through Snapchat. We didn't realize the depth and the big issue because no one was talking about it at the time. There was no drug emoji code being talked about. We were told to look out for bullies and sexual predators. And I looked for those things. I spot checked his social media accounts. I spot checked his computer. We did those things we were supposed to do. Internet went off at 9:00 in our house. We thought we had these things figure it out. But the reality is, again, no one was talking about it. We were flying blind and we didn't even know it. We trusted the information being put out there. And so, since that time and meeting more and more parents like myself, there was this one day, 2 months after he died, I'm like, we have to do something. Like something has to be done. And right out of the gate, I was told, well, you can't sue social media. You can't sue Snapchat. You can't sue Snapchat. And I kind of took that in stride and like, okay, I can't sue Snapchat. I thought this person that was telling me this was smarter than me, And I met with Gretchen Peters from the Alliance to Counter Crime Online, and I was telling her my experience. And she says, why can't you sue Snapchat? You can sue whoever you want. And then the light bulb went off. And then she introduced me to Carrie Goldberg. And then we ended up meeting Matt. So that's kind of the short story of the path of how we got here.
And for me, we were sitting in our home on Super Bowl Sunday. I fed my son a cheeseburger, told him I loved him. He said he loved me back. Those were our last words to each other. That was his last meal. Found him dead on the floor a little bit later, having aspirated his lunch, which is what happens. I call it the fentanyl death pose, where their respiration slows down so much that they pass out. And then oftentimes they vomit and choke on it. And that's what happened to him. A drug dealer contacted him on Snapchat with a colorful drug menu. At the bottom, it said his name and that he delivered. And he had a dose of something delivered to our house like a pizza after we were asleep. And that's how he died. And it was horrible. I tried to resuscitate him. My wife called 911. I worked on him until the police showed up and the firemen showed up and they took over. And then the police left and said that we wouldn't be hearing from them for another 3 months when the toxicology report comes back, if it showed anything, right? So my wife, Laura Bergman, puts out on her Instagram this drug menu and tells everyone to watch out. And the media picked it up. And after enough media, over the next day, the day after that, 3 detectives show up at our house ready to investigate. And unfortunately, that's the way some of this stuff works. You have to be famous to get any justice, which we ultimately did not get. They tracked down his killer, presented it to the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, and George Gascon's office declined to prosecute. Their standard excuse was used on us, which is enough time passed. It was 3 days from the day he bought the drugs until they were consumed that anything could have happened. But it turns out that they're not prosecuting any of the fentanyl cases here in LA County. And the drug dealers know that if they drive around with only a certain limit of drugs on them, that if they get caught, they just get the equivalent of a traffic ticket and they're back out there that night. So the police, we told the police, let's contact Snapchat and find out who this drug dealer is. And they told us that the people at Snap Inc. don't return their calls. And they've stopped reaching out because to no avail every single time. And eventually we kept going in the media, and eventually Snap Inc. yielded, and they helped the police in our case, thankfully, which did make a difference. And that only shows that if they would care about the victims' families more, care about the victims more, they could make a huge difference. They now have taken an education approach, right? So they've made a public service announcement that they put on if you type in the word fentanyl. And it's like the warning on the cigarette pack, it's sort of ironic or an oxymoron that they would be warning you. They who shoot the bullet of fentanyl at our kids are warning us about fentanyl. How about every time the word fentanyl is typed, you take down the profile, or you look into what was typed and determine if it's a drug dealer and take down the profile? I believe.
I mean, the kids don't have the critical thinking skills to know what the results are if they do this in the first place. How do we think that from a preventative measure, that just a little education is going to do the trick, especially with this technology? 100% agree with you. Doesn't make sense.
Right. So I believe that if we added a duty of care to Section 230C, that they would flip a switch and solve this problem tomorrow.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah, so
I'm having flashbacks on you. I feel like I'm flashbacking to my world of sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. The same thing. In the beginning, law enforcement it was hard to get help and punish the criminals. And then to get the laws changed, it's almost like you're fighting all these lobbyists. And so, man, it's a road and a long road sometimes. But I'm just here to tell you, you will succeed. I as God is my witness, I think I just want to give you that message for some reason.
There's no other option but to succeed.
No,
that's right.
There's no other option.
So as Matt said, we're suing over the algorithms that drive these drug dealers to our kids. And right now, the Senate is considering the Kids Online Safety Act, which would allow parents to turn off those algorithms. And I just don't know, as long as the Senate feels we need a law about this, how Snap Inc. could say that their algorithms aren't dangerous. It's so obvious and it's so harmful. And I don't know how they sleep at night. We actually got to speak to Evan Spiegel, the CEO of Snap Inc., and ask him to fix this problem. And he said he was worried about his data privacy. We believe that parents should be able to protect their kids. And right now there's technology that exists, parent monitoring software. We asked him to allow for it to be integrated into his platform. And he said he doesn't want his data stream available to another company. And it turns out the one company in this area that's the biggest has a better safety rating than Snapchat does. And we tried to tell Evan Spiegel, privacy is an issue that parents should mete out to their children based on maturity and age, and that Snapchat was getting in the way, not facilitating privacy.
Well, we know there's an attack on parents in a sense of being able to protect our children in many decisions these days, where they it just feels like a motive where we're just let the child make their own decisions at the age of 12 when we know they're experimenting. And I love that you said, Amy, experiencing. We know these kids are going to experience, and we have to have these relationships. I often tell Rania that we need to, our kids need champions that are outside of the parent group. That they can talk to, but even that is not foolproof. So we have to put in all measures in place to do this. And technology,
we hear time and time again, isn't it the parent's responsibility? And we're all for parental responsibility. These products are specifically designed to allow kids and to encourage kids to evade parental responsibility.
Right.
I mean, Instagram encourages kids to open multiple accounts. They call that a value add. Snapchat promotes itself precisely to encourage kids to exchange messages without parental monitoring. I mean, Amy was doing everything but right. And still it happened. There was a time when if kids stepped out of line, teenagers, you'd ground them. And it was no fun to have a surly teenager in your house, but you knew your kid was safe within the four corners of your own house. Parents don't have that assurance right now, and this has to change. Let us be clear. The only reason why Snapchat is not making these changes is because it would reduce user engagement and their profits. They have made an intentional decision to elevate profits over the safety of our kids. And unless and until we change the legal calculus and the economic calculus by making it more expensive for them to make dangerous products and safe products, they're not going to change their behavior. If Evan Spiegel could talk to Sam about his son and not change his behavior and not change his product, it's clear that moral persuasion isn't going to do the trick. We have to hit him in the pocketbook. That's what we intend to do.
We've been talking a lot about the life-saving resource of Narcan. If you go to the link below, you can email Crime Stoppers, and we have a limited supply. We'll send it to you for free.
They're the modern day Backpage.
Yeah.
Snapchat and they're the modern day Backpage where they were selling our children online. Now they're okay with our kids being sold drugs
and
online.
They turn a blind eye. I mean, they turn a blind eye. This is not an accident, a coincidence. This is not something they don't know about. It's something they don't care about, because to care about it would mean to reduce their profits. And just like Backpage, and the other thing is the only thing that we're suggesting is that social media companies have the same level of responsibility that every other company in America
has. That's what I was about to say.
Reasonable care.
That's
the golden
what I was
rule.
thinking.
Every other company manages to be profitable while still having a duty of reasonable care. Why can't social media?
The wild, wild west of the social media world needs to stop.
Yeah.
And it's time.
I agree.
Sam, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I think it's amazing the role that Crime Stoppers Houston is playing in our communities. And I really want to praise Matt while we have him on here and ask him to tell a little bit about his law firm, because it's an incredible resource for families in our situation. And I know, we're not into this for the money. We're in this to save other people's lives. And so is he. So I wonder, Matt, if you could tell us a little bit about your law firm.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been a product liability lawyer for 25 years, representing victims of defective products, mostly asbestos victims. And I reached a point where I wanted to devote my career toward preventing people from becoming victims in the first place. And I looked at the revelations from Frances Haugen and others about just what the social media companies knew about and know about how dangerous their products were. And it made the asbestos companies seem like choir boys. And then I looked at the mental health harms and the increased rates of suicide, depression, anxiety, and fentanyl poisoning. and decided I wanted to form a new firm to handle this. So I formed the Social Media Victims Law Center. We currently have 1,850 parents around the country whose children have been either lost their lives through social media or suffered severe emotional or physical sexual abuse or eating disorders. And we are singularly focused on using the principles of product liability to hold these companies accountable, to make them bear the cost of the carnage that they're inflicting on our kids. And it is a long struggle. It is not a certain struggle. And when we talk to parents like Amy and Sam, I've never had clients less concerned about money and more concerned about making a difference. And we have no illusions that this is anything other than a long, hard struggle. But, in my faith tradition, the Talmud says, if you save one life, it's like you've saved the world. And we're hopeful that through our efforts, regardless of what happens, we're going to be able to save lives. And I think we already have. And I think that you and Crime Stoppers, by airing this show, is already making a difference. And we'd like to save all the world, but every life that we save, every child that doesn't succumb to fentanyl poisoning, is a victory.
And Amy and I are what I call accidental activists who came to this without the intention of ever doing anything like this in our lives. But Amy is a true leader in this fight, and she's created the Alexander Neville Foundation. And I'd love if she could tell us about the foundation and what her work is.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much. Obviously, when we, after Alex died and we were trying to figure out how did we get here, and we really learned in depth about the fentanyl issues. We learned about the social media issues, and no one's talking about this in our community, because I kept hearing over and over again from our law enforcement, it's like, oh yeah, we've known about this problem since 2017, and nobody was talking about it. I'm like, well, we have to talk about this. The first time I spoke out about Alexander and the fentanyl crisis was at his funeral, and I haven't looked back. So I travel the country. I give presentations to law enforcement, schools, coalitions, parents, you name it. If you will have me, even if you don't want to talk to me about it, I'm going to talk to you about it. And we talk about everything from the fentanyl crisis or social media issues, everything in between. But part of that too is our peer-to-peer prevention program that we have, where youth teach youth, essentially. It started off, I do quarterly listening sessions with teens. And from that, they give me the latest and greatest information, right? And it helps inform my presentations. And in fact, I run my presentations by them to make sure I don't sound like an old lady, or some old mom or another adult just telling them what to do, that it's relatable and makes sense to them. And I find that work very rewarding, obviously. And I love these kids are so great. They're so open with me, and they really have opened my eyes to what they're dealing with, because as adults, we don't have their lived experience at this point. Right. We're trying to guide them through this. And so how do we get parents to open their mind to that, rather than, oh gosh, why is my kid acting this way? We never did that. Well, you didn't do that because you didn't have social media. We were living a whole different life. So it's really full-time work, so to speak, for me. But it's important. It has to get done. We have to talk to these parents. We have to talk to these kids. And, I'd go back, obviously. I'd trade it all to go back, but here we are.
I just want you to know we're pushing for Sammy's Law, which would require platforms with children on to allow for parent monitoring software. It's been introduced into the California Senate, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz is leading the charge in the U.S. House of Representatives. We're also excited about the Children's Online Safety Act and its ability to sort of regulate these horrible non-speech behaviors that platforms like Snapchat are throwing at our children.
Mm-hmm. Of you three and the army behind you, do you feel like you're making cracks?
I think they're making baby steps. They're steps in the right direction. Every life that's spared is a victory. But the fundamental business model of maximizing engagement over safety has not changed, and we fear will not change before SNAP has to stand in front of a jury and explain why the life of Sam and the life of Alex was less important than their profits.
Crime Stoppers of Houston, we deal with victims and victim families every single day. That's what we do. And we're also very much about prevention and believe in the power of mitigation through education. And so, Amy, what you were saying was so interesting to me, because we actually find, as we're in schools, kindergarten through 12th grade, every single day, and in summer camps through the summer, after school camps, et cetera, you learn so much from these students and from these young lives. And we recognize the world they're growing up in is so different than the world we grew up in. But yet there's a massive disconnect when we try to bring the information to the parent community. I'm about to speak to a group of seventh grade. I'm about to speak to a group of middle schoolers. And the parents invited us, and I'm going on an upcoming weekend. And it was very interesting. Please don't talk about fentanyl. Please don't talk about pornography. Please don't talk about this. We don't want to scare the kids. We don't want. And I'm saying, they don't want to scare the kids. And I'm thinking your kids could teach you all about all of these things.
Usually when I get that, especially at the middle school age, I'm like, well, Alex didn't make it to high school. So when should we talk to him about it? When do you want to talk to him about it? Sometimes I get a little chip on my shoulder, but you know what? Middle schoolers are the best. My middle school presentations are my favorite because they ask the best questions. They're open vessels. They want to know more, and they already know about it. These kids, my listening sessions start at 12 years old. These kids, they know about these things already. They just don't know how to talk to the adults in their lives about it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, because either fear or they'll get shamed. There's not trust there, and they'll be disciplined. They feel like there's going to be disciplinary action if they admit something, or
they feel they're mature enough to handle it.
Yeah.
The other thing we get is we know how to navigate this, Mom. We know what we're doing. You guys are overreact, and we deserve privacy online. And I keep telling kids, you don't deserve privacy online. And Sam and Laura made the point following Sammy. If you watch those early interviews, Sam kept saying, know your kids' passwords.
Yeah.
And you go into a room with middle school parents and you say, how many of you know your kids' passwords? A very few raise, and they say, well, we don't want to infringe on our children's privacy. And so these are really interesting conversations that we have to be having at home about what expectations do you have for privacy when you're living in spaces that are not geared to protect you.
Right.
Part of it too is we have to get parents, first of all, we have to own up to the fact, okay, we've been duped by these companies. We've been tricked. We've been manipulated by them. We've bought into the marketing. We bought into all the good things. And we need to own up to the fact that we let that happen, right? Okay, great. But let's take back the power now. Now that we know better, it's time that we do better as parents. And so what I find when I talk to parents who are a little defensive about the social media aspect is because they love their social media. They don't like to be threatened by their social media. Like, we'll go out and do these interviews like this, and inevitably somebody will email me, somebody will tell me how wrong I am, or, your problem is because you're an awful parent, whatever the case may be. But the reality is we're just all uncomfortable taking that hard look at ourselves and what we're doing. And so we can encourage that. And usually I tell parents, it's, I know you're, after seeing me, your knee-jerk reaction is to want to go home and take Snapchat off your kid's phone. But instead of doing that, why don't you ask them, what have you seen about drugs on Snapchat? And how your kid answers that question is going to tell you everything you need to know. And then a lot of times I'll hear from parents, you know what, my kid didn't know anything about drugs on Snapchat, but I just found out they're being intensely bullied, or some old man across the country is sending them inappropriate pictures at 13 years old. And so it opens up the door for those conversations.
And those middle schoolers they tell you so much. I tell this one story. So one night I remember going in, and they mentioned this last night. Ronnie and I did a presentation last night in KDISD, and we're talking about where we all used to come to sit down at the table. I remember we used to talk at the table. Well, now that we're all so busy, sports, blah, 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 we don't have those sit downs. So you have to find moments where you go and sit down with your kid. I remember doing it with my oldest, went and lied down with him one night. I'm in his, like, hey, so what's going on? I was like, you're going to this new school. It's known for drugs, blah, blah. It's a public school. Just want to let you can tell me anything that you might experiment or see. And I said, because you know what? And really, you can talk to your dad, because your dad did every drug imaginable. So horrible, my poor husband. But I was relatable. I was saying, you know what? I made mistakes. I smoked weed when I was, such and such age. Because if you become too high up, that they don't think you've ever made mistakes, or I didn't have sex and I didn't do this, then you're no longer relatable and they can't trust you. All they see you as a disciplinarian. And my son told me about robo tripping. I don't know if you know Robotripping, is the DM and Robitussin, where they would smoke it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'd never heard of that in my life. So you're right. You're so right, Amy. It's these conversations that if we can't have it with our child, find someone you trust that can.
And I put myself out there for parents, like drag me in, and I hear from kids. I give them my personal information at the end of every presentation. And this part always gets me, but I hear from kids every time. I have kids texting me during presentations. My best friend is using pills. I'm scared. What do I do? Were you at my school today? Because I'm thinking about suicide. I mean, it happens every single time, and it happens at every grade, every age level. It's not, middle school is not exempt.
The war against children is overwhelming. And from the depression to the suicidal ideation, to the actual suicide, to the self-cutting, to the pills that they're offered, and as we talk to kids, they'll say, I actually didn't plan to be, I'm not trying to be a drug user. I just heard that Adderall helps you lose weight, or I need help focusing on an exam, or boys will say, we've started weightlifting and my muscles hurt and I can't go get a Percocet, but I can get one on Snapchat or whatever platform. It's almost coming from an innocent place. And really here they are dealing with the things they're dealing with.
And all of those things, the rate of those things that are rising with our teens, those harms, all of them are rising with social media. I mean, there is a direct correlation right there.
There's
and it doesn't stop here. I mean, this is the first time I'm going to say it publicly. My family lost 2 twin boys at the age of 22 from a substance. I'm not sure it was fentanyl, but it is a substance that came laced something. And so within a year of each other,
it is fentanyl.
Within a year of each other,
you guys don't know yet.
No, and so it's not. It's middle school, it's high school, it's college, it's adults, it's people our age that think they're getting XYZ from their friend, and they're not. And I just really commend you guys. I think it is a long road, and I think you're making cracks, and certainly with the laws that you're trying to change, please engage the other community. We'll engage other communities, get involved. We fought the CDA. It's a hard one to fight, free speech, but I like what y'all are saying.
Yeah, it's a non-speech issue.
It's a non-speech issue. Explain that a little bit, Sam. Non-speech issue. But explain what that means.
So there are algorithms that allow drug dealers to find our children. If you type in a plug emoji on Snapchat, you'll get offers of drugs coming in, and you wonder how they find you, right? There's a geolocator device that will tell drug dealers and sex traffickers exactly where our children are. They have addicting behaviors like streaks, where I snap you and you snap me back. That starts a streak. And it's a prestige thing for kids. Before midnight the next day, they have to snap back and forth with that person to keep the streak going. And they try and keep as many streaks going as possible. By the time they're done, they're staying up late trying to finish off their streaks before they go to bed, and fully addicted to the platform. So these are the types of things that Snap has put into place that are not safe for children. And I think you're right that there is a war against children, and there's a war against our country. I mean, fentanyl poisoning is the leading cause of death for adults 18 to 45, with 300 deaths a day, like a jumbo jet dropping from the sky filled with people. And the war starts with China. And China is sending over the precursor drugs that are killing our kids. In addition to that, and this is the most galling, they're also sending over the pill molds that the cartels are using in Mexico to make some of these counterfeit drugs that they're bringing over the border. And then we're being attacked by the cartels, who are making more money than ever on this drug, because if they don't kill one of their clients, if you will, they have them for life. Fentanyl is 50 times as strong as heroin and fully addictive. And once you have some, you have to have more. And the dosage that a drug addict will take is enough to kill 10 kids. And that's what's going on. These doses are being made in drug labs that are imprecise. It takes 2 grains of salt worth of fentanyl to kill a human being who is not previously addicted to it. And then the social media companies are helping get the fentanyl from the border into our communities. And they're actually driving the people who are muling the drugs across into the different communities and distributing to the drug dealers in our communities. And then the drug dealers are using social media to find our kids and deliver to our homes. And, the DEA is the one government entity that's doing something about this. Our administration won't bring this up with China. They won't close the border. They're basically allowing this to happen on their watch to our children, to our adults. And it's up to the parents, basically, and the DEA to fight this battle until we either get a change in government or our government wakes up to the fact that we are at war. China is attacking us. The Mexican cartels are attacking us, and they're winning.
I was obviously, whenever I talk to you, Sam, specifically, and Amy, we're so excited to have you as well. But I always go back and listen to previous interviews. And one of the people, Sam, that you had talked to started sort of discussing your points and called you one of the most knowledgeable people that they've ever spoken to on this issue. So I really appreciate your full circle analysis and perspective, because there are a lot of people we talk to that say, but this is very random. This is like a child happens to come across, it's so rare, a laced fentanyl, but like, it's just so rare. But I look back and say, it is the number one focus of any narcotics-based task force. It's now become the number one focus. The DEA, we were with the FBI yesterday. Mm-hmm. They said it's one of their number one issues, in addition to things like sextortion, which again, its home is in social media and in these online platforms. What is your response, though? I mean, I guess I have to ask the question to the parent says, you're overthinking this, and this is an unfortunate experience. It was just a random experience. I mean,
or a kid that was making bad choices.
Yeah. It makes me crazy.
Yes, well, there were some bad choices involved, but there was also the Communist Party of China who's attacking us. There are the district attorneys who are using restorative justice to let these dealers back out on the street after the police capture them. There's Wall Street that rewards these social media companies for the number of users that they have, not the health of their users or even the profit that they have. If you can announce an uptick in your users, your stock price is going to go up, sure as shoot. And so it's really big governments, big corporations, big money coming after our kids.
Thank you to our sponsor, FlipLock, for making this episode possible. FlipLock is a door lock unlike any other lock that was created as a nationwide, straightforward solution to protect your people, whether that be in universities, dorms, daycares, hospitals, or even government buildings. It can be added to nearly any door to keep you and yours safe. We are proud to have such a strong and like-minded sponsor of the Balanced Voice podcast. Check out FlipLock at fliplock.com. That's FLIPLOK.com.
Let's think about that. Wait a second.
Why Amy says
where's the ESG?
You can't sue these companies.
Yeah, but where's the ESG in that? Let me just think about it. So everybody. So I work for the energy industry, right? We're all about environmental and safety and governance. Yeah. Where is the have more users and not have a healthy platform play in the whole environmental and social of the ESG
because
part?
The ESG, as long as it doesn't impact your bottom line, that's when we care about the ESG. That's when we care about all of these topics. But if it's going to impact the bottom line, those things get thrown out the window.
So you know what I have to say? As basically, I guess a call out. Snapchat, United States government, you are basically allowing our children to be poisoned via your platforms and trafficked for sex, and you're not doing a damn thing about it. And so,
but they claim they are.
But they claim they are.
Snap responded to this lawsuit on a Fox 11. It pulled the quote, while we don't, and their comments were, while we don't typically comment on active litigation, unfortunately, this amended filing is riddled with false claims about how the Snapchat app works. Our ongoing efforts to aggressively combat drug activity on our platforms and shut down drug dealers and our team member statements. We remain deeply committed to doing our part to fight this urgent crisis. You too, and you, Sam, have spoken directly to the CEO. What are they doing that's so aggressive to stop this? I mean, my understanding is they might close an account, but the user is going to come right back up with another account.
What are they doing? That's a great question. What are they doing?
What are they doing? That's what I don't know what they're doing.
So they're making the statement. Have they told y'all the actions they're taking?
Oh yeah, they make a public statement every now and then about these great things that they're putting in place, but they're deeply flawed. They're little tiny band-aids on a huge gaping wound that needs major surgery. So, they put out enough little tidbits that the general public, sure, they'd hear it and like, oh, look what Snapchat's doing. But those of us on the other side know better. We know that these things are, tiny little things that really ultimately amount to nothing. So last fall, they announced that they were having their parent center, right? So in order to engage with your kid through the family center, you need to set up an account. So now I'm a mom, I have to set up an account. What does that do? That increases users, correct? Mm-hmm. Now I'm using their platform. I have to connect with my kid on this platform. Mm-hmm. Through that, I cannot see what my kid is talking about. I can see who they're talking to. And they equate that to, well, you don't go in your kid's bedroom and listen to their private conversations. Maybe I have that option, right? And when a kid comes to my home to visit my kid, I can vet that kid. I can have a conversation with that kid. I can walk out to the car and meet that kid's parents. None of that exists through Snapchat's platform. So how is that helpful? I have no idea. Honestly, at the end of the day, what does that do? But nothing. And then also, what if my kid's the culprit? What if my kid's bullying somebody on there? I can see they're talking to this person. I can't see what it is. When something bad goes down, who's going to be held accountable for that kid? Me as their parent. And so we need more access. What
are the things? Yeah. So tell me, can you name, kind of bullet the different things that y'all have y'all had technologists take a look at this from the outside and say, these changes, these X, Y, and Z need to change, and this is how they can do it?
Yes,
do y'all know those specific things?
Yes, but in summary, they're treating this like a PR issue, not as something that they want to stop. We know they have the power to stop it right away, and they've decided not to, right? Every fix they've put in place, a 12-year-old kid can get around in a few minutes. And so they're ineffective, feckless attempts to fool the public into thinking that it's safe to go on there. There is only one number that matters. How many kids are dying in association with your platform? When that number starts going down, we'll start winning the battle. In the meantime, it's all just talk, talk, talk.
Mm-hmm. And we did put out a paper, The Best Practices to Rid Social Media of Drug Trafficking, where we spent 9 months interviewing in depth experts on these subjects. And, it's things like retaining referrals to law enforcement, warehousing that things, establishing strong, very specific policies, that duty of care along with the third-party auditing. These are things that we need. And the proactive monitoring on top of that, real proactive monitoring, not this, report it here. We crawl for these words and, we remove things when we see them, because ultimately they don't. I even have a mom that I work with who she sent me the picture. She sent in an account. This account's violating your terms of service. They were selling drugs, came back from Snapchat. Oh, you're right. They are, but they never removed the account. And that's recent. So they can say they're doing it, but the proof, it looks a little different.
Yeah.
Right. Importantly, we've been speaking today about Snapchat, but this is also occurring on Facebook's messaging service, Instagram's messaging service, TikTok. And it's important to also know that the gaming platforms like Discord by Microsoft are very dangerous. And that's why we need parent monitoring software that goes across platforms and across devices, so that the kids don't just hop on to the next platform that doesn't have whatever technology one platform may have put in place that's actually working.
Well, and this is on platforms you don't think of. So my youngest was just saying, who's not allowed to have social media, said, Mom, that's okay. I talk to people through Pinterest. Pinterest is the new Instagram for the 6th graders. And when you really think of it, she's right. They create boards, they put pictures up, people follow the boards, message them. You can look for content that the Pinterest algorithm picks up and then starts feeding you images on, and connections based on. So you are right, Sam. This is epidemic amongst the culture, amongst the business of online connections. Our executive producer, Sydney Zeiker, just sent me, social media companies have asked for formal regulations by the US government that they can abide by, so they have clear lines about the correct balance of free speech and data privacy, and are no longer deciding for themselves what the correct balance is. What is that? Is that a true request? Is that a cop-out because they're speaking to a bunch of people who sort of are in their pocket?
They know what to do. They know how to fix this problem. So to put it out there and act like they need guidance is ridiculous. I mean, they created.
Yeah, where's the corporate social responsibility in that?
Exactly.
We need the government to tell us what to do rather than corporate social responsibility that tells us what we should do.
And you're right that it's an epidemic, and epidemics need medicine. So as long as we have everybody listening, it's important that you go out and get Narcan. It is available without a prescription from your pharmacist. And later on this summer, it's going to be available over the counter. The FDA just approved it for over the counter, and they're working on the new packaging and everything. And soon it'll be available in your drugstores. But right now, today, if you can hear us, go to your pharmacy and ask for Narcan. It's available without a prescription. It's non-toxic. So if any one of your kid's friends or your kid pass out and you're not sure if they've been poisoned, you can administer Narcan quickly, and there's no danger. There's no harm in trying. And if it was a opioid overdose or poisoning, the Narcan will help you until the EMTs get there and can get the kid to the hospital. It's life-saving advice.
And Crime Stoppers of Houston actually offers Narcan for free, and we'll put the information on how you can get that if you're in the Houston area. Sam, Amy, what is your takeaway for families watching this? What can we do now from wherever we are, whether through the Texas or the country, to support your efforts to make the social media platform safer for all of our children?
I think follow the legislation, look up the Kids Online Safety Act, write the letters to your senators and your legislators, and let's get these things passed. Like, let's stop messing around on this stuff and take it seriously. And also, just the other thing, I hope parents that listen to this will stop and think, okay, this can happen in my family. This can happen to somebody I know or love, and go out and further educate yourself on these issues and be prepared for the worst.
And I would say get nosy. Look into what your kids are doing. Maybe even listen at the door, get their username and passwords until other people can allow us to protect our own kids. Make it a quid pro quo for owning the devices. We still pay for those devices. So basically, at any age, when your kids go on social media or they get a smartphone, you need to speak to them about sexual content, about drugs, teach them to block and report any messages that come in that are of drug-related nature or sexual-related nature, and make them aware of bullying, as Amy says, in both directions. Don't let your kids be a bully. And be aware if they're being bullied, because it can lead to suicide, and it is all over the country. Right now, our kids are hurting. They've been stuck inside. They've been scared for their lives. And the amount of anxiety and depression is overwhelming. Eating disorders, drug abuse, it's a mess. And we need to take extra care with our kids in this generation.
I used to say people would get so excited, like, oh, my kid's going to go to this Ivy League or they do this after college. Like, at this point, I think we're just successful if we just get our child through life.
Yeah.
I mean, the bar is so much lower now on what is success and helping your child navigate, because we don't have control over it.
Yeah.
We can't control the environment anymore.
And to Sam's point, our children are going through quite a bit, from threats of active shooters to every other thing you can imagine. But the parents won't stop. And that's what I love about you all and about us. And Amy, I know you mourn for your son, but you're moved to tears for the kids that aren't yours, that call you and text you. And Sam, everybody knows you are the ultimate warrior. And if you look at people talking about you, that's what you are. And Laura, of course. that's where people underestimate. Yes, these social media giants, they are giants. And yes, there seems to be some type of collusion or quid pro quo between the government and these entities, Wall Street and these entities. But nothing will stop a parent's love for their children. A parent who has paid the ultimate sacrifice and lost a child, and the rest who are just trying to protect the children that we have and our friends' children. So we stand with you. We stand behind you, Sam. You've been with us 3 times now, and we know we'll speak to you again, Amy. It's a privilege and an honor to meet you, and we'll invite our Texas community to follow you. Crime Stoppers, we have many people come speak to our community, so we will definitely look to collaborate with you as we speak to kids across the Houston and across the state. Sam, are you still looking for signatures on Let Parents Protect?
So we basically moved on to making it a law. And it's more about the lawmakers doing something than not. So contacting your congressperson, contacting your local state senator or your local state representative, and letting them know they need to do something about social media endangering our kids and fentanyl coming into our societies. Those are the actions that we've graduated to now. Also, we have a sort of a grief group on Facebook called Parents for Safer Children for families to whom this has happened. And there is a wonderful site called grief.com. God forbid anyone listening has lost a child or any other victims that I know Crime Stoppers Houston helps over and over again. Check out grief.com. There's a lot of resources. And, Amy and I are there for each other. We're there for other parents. And there's an ever-growing community of parents who have lost children to this scourge, and reach out to each other and take care of each other.
We have, we're going to follow you and follow the laws that you're putting in place. But I will tell you that we've proven that these kind of laws against these social media companies can be done with FOSTA SESTA. So, and we have a loud group of women, Texas women and parents with big hair and big mouths. So please let us know. We are not afraid to show up in our Jimmy Choos and whatever it is, or a flip-flop to walk those halls with you.
Yes.
And be the biggest pain in the ass possible. So just let us know. And we love flying to DC too, to stir up the pot. They know who we are. So we'd love to support you.
Our cowboy hat is off to Governor Greg Abbott, who is an amazing fentanyl warrior. So you've got a governor that's leading the charge here and doing incredible things to help families like ours not have to go through this again.
Sam, we are very proud of the work Governor Abbott's done on fentanyl, and we're very proud that he chose Crime Stoppers of Houston to be the place where he signed that legislation into law. We'll continue to work on this. Both of you, we please, we're one phone call away. We'll do whatever we need to do. As Jen said, we have the Army. And for everybody else, notes will be available. Opportunities and ways to follow what Sam and Amy are doing. And this lawsuit will be in the comments and the notes. I actually believe this is the most important issue facing our families and all of us right now. So Sam, Amy, we thank you. Matt, we thank you for being with us. Everybody else, we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to today's Balanced Conversation. You can find real solutions and tangible resources in our show notes at thebalancedvoicepodcast.com. To join the conversation, follow us on Instagram at The Balanced Voice Podcast and on Twitter at @BalancedVoice_. Stay up to date on Runya's work by following her at The Runya Report, and we can't wait to see you next week for another Balanced Conversation.